Have you always been frustrated in studying the Bible? Have you read the Bible in bits and pieces? Stay tuned. We're going to talk about a development of a Bible curriculum that will help you see the Bible as a whole book. It will actually be the Bible you've never read.
Vantage Point is brought to you by American Vision. For more about the topic of today's show, check out Thinking Straight in a Crooked World. You will find it at americanvision.com.
Welcome to Vantage Point. I'm Gary DeMar. This is Darren Doane, and we're going to talk about a video project that we've been talking about for quite some time.
Yes.
And we've already done some initial filming out in California, testing and so forth. And we're going to bring this project to the Atlanta area, and we're going to spend the 2011 in production of this video project. And Darren, give a little bit of background of your film background. A lot of people, don't know who you are and what you do, but just briefly, kind of tell everybody what you do.
I guess by trade, I'm a filmmaker. That's kind of but more specifically, I've been directing music videos for 20 years now. Directing's been my only job, We've talked. I mean, I thought I was going to draw comic books. That didn't work out. So my plan B was sort of filmmaking, and that's all I've done. But music videos was sort of my niche.
You've done some commercials with
Toyota, some commercials too. Yeah,
Nike.
Yeah, we did some Nike, Hurley, JBL, some really good top brands. I've been really fortunate to work with, and also learn just how those brands operate, how they think, how they do what they do.
Right.
So that's been my trade, but I think maybe that fits in that my trade has specifically been trying to figure out how to communicate things in 2 and 3 minutes and 30 seconds. And so I'm always condensing,
Yeah, I always tell people,
what's the point, what's the,
I'd rather write a 200-page book than to have to write a description of a 200-page book. Give me 200 pages and I can do it, but it is hard to kind of encapsulate things in such a way and in such a time frame that you communicate to people, and people leave with, aha, I understand it, and I got it.
And I'd much rather be the opposite. I want that one moment that someone says, okay, it's not just, it's not just a hand that reaches in and grabs a glass and then he drinks and he's refreshed. To me, it's that moment when the hand just touches the glass, there's condensation and it's slow motion and those fingers hit and you know that it's refreshing. So that moment there is what I'm focused on. And that's kind of led into how I look at the Bible and how I've been, like you said, trying to read the Bible over and over and over and realizing that, I'm just not getting anywhere,
Yeah, well, most of us, we grow up with, maybe the basic story of the Bible. We see the Bible in bits and pieces. We see a lot of these stories as morality tales. Probably the best known one is David and Goliath, and people, you get up a pastor gets up and he says, no, the real purpose of this message is that God will slay the giants in your life. Well, that's not what that story is all about.
Right.
And you can find those types of moral stories, Aesop's fables, if you want.
Right.
The Bible is, that particular story is in the Bible for a different reason.
Right.
Not that God can't slay your giants, but sometimes he doesn't.
Right.
Sometimes
God brings giants into people's lives in the Bible because of them needing to have a giant that kind of spanks them a little bit.
Yeah, so, right. And there's a
lot of those.
And if you take the story of David and Goliath, you have to look back, and you can go all the way back to Genesis chapter 3, and you see the story about crushing heads, and then you go forward to the book of Judges, and you see two head crushing themes in the book of Judges, Jael and Sisera, and then this unnamed woman who drops upper millstone on Abimelech's head.
Right.
And then you get to David with cutting off Goliath's head.
Right.
You have to ask yourself the question, is any of that significant?
Right.
You get to the New Testament, Jesus is crucified on a place, Golgotha, a place of a skull. And there's some indication that Golgotha and Goliath, there is some understanding that maybe those two things work together, and some have even speculated that Goliath's head was buried in that very place, and then you've got the stake of the cross coming and crushing the head of the serpent.
Serpent, right.
And then later on it talks about God will soon crush Satan under your feet.
Right.
Now, most people, they read the Bible, they read those stories independent of the rest of the Bible.
Right.
And yet that's not the way the Bible should be read.
Right.
So,
and that's something that you know, once is actually through one of your products here, which was reading the Bible again for the first time by James Jordan. You know, because again, you always want to understand the Bible. You always have another Bible curriculum. This is the year I'm going to read through it. I got my marked out 3 pages a day, whatever, you know. And I just bought that product that you had here, just like any other product. Well, maybe this will help me this time, you know. And as that product, as James Jordan began to flesh out these themes, these concepts that were flowing and repeating throughout the whole Bible, it was like, wow, you could get handles on the Bible in regards to, oh, I think I understand what's going on here now. I actually think, okay, there's all these things set up here in Genesis. They seem to play over and over and over and over, and they all lead to Christ. And here's this picture. And now, when Jesus shows up, you know, now the end of the movie has begun, and it's all cashing in, you know. And that's what began to happen. And then, but me as a filmmaker, then I kept thinking, man, how could I begin to condense some of this imagery? Because in the Bible, we're given these visual images. We're given these symbols. And
this is something Protestants have really kind of shied away from. They don't like the idea of images. Protestants are generally considered everything's word-based, 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 word-based. Roman Catholics have come in, it's mostly image, image, image. And yet the Bible is a mixture of those two things. The stories Jesus tells are image-based. He's always talking in terms of you know, a sower went out to sow. I mean, there's always some sort of visual aspect to all of this.
Right.
And I guess we've gotten to the point in our own day. In fact, if you go back to the medieval times when people didn't read, this is where a lot of these visual ideas came in, because in order to depict these things, people sketched them out. Right. And the Bible does that. Now, give us some indication, because you've already started this a bit. We were out in California a couple of months ago and did some shooting out there, and
got a chance to really get our feet wet in biblical imagery. Yeah, you know, and what I found in doing that was that as I began to put flesh on these stories, which have been done before. You can turn on TBN, you can turn on. I mean, there's a ton of the Life of Jesus movies and all these different things. And what I find interesting when I would look at those projects or those movies is, it seemed like there was a script. They had the Bible as a script, but they weren't really hitting on the images that are actually sort of unfolding. And so I can never figure out, well, why am I watching this movie about Jesus, because I'm a Christian, that's what I do, right? I need to watch a movie about Jesus. Who doesn't want to watch a movie about Jesus, And I'm watching these things, and it just something seems to be missing.
Right, I agree.
It's just missing. It seems like they've got the costumes, they've got everything, they've built these sets, but why is something missing? And I think what hit me was, as I began to look at a lot of your work, James Jordan work, Peter Leithart, Jeff Myers, there was so much more going on in these stories that actually they were cashing out at that moment. But you're not being told that something is cashing out. I think of the story of one of the blind men. I don't know if they're the same. One of the blind men, he gets healed, right? And after Jesus heals him, Jesus disappears. He's not there anymore. And then the Pharisees come, right? And they begin to question him.
This is the story of the man who was born blind.
Right.
No one had ever been healed.
Right.
Who had been born blind.
Right. And if you look at that story, all of a sudden the Pharisees come, they question him, and next thing you know, they kick him out of the temple. He's not allowed to be there. And you read that story and you go, okay, Jesus heals a guy, right? And then apparently he's not allowed to be with the people he used to be with, right? But you go back to that narrative and you realize, like, there's something really amazing cashing out there in that a blind man receives sight, and once he receives the sight, Jesus is gone. He's left alone. I mean, you would think Jesus heals his sight, and all of a sudden Jesus is there. I'm your buddy. I'm Jesus. We're going to hang out now. But he's abandoned. He's not there. And then the bad guys show up. Well, this is a movie now, the way it actually is playing out, but we don't see it playing out that way. He gets his sight. Jesus is gone. And when he turns around, the bad guys come around the corner. It's dun 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 dun, and he's going, where is this Jesus? And they come and they question him and they lay into him and they end up kicking him out and saying, okay, you're not even allowed in the temple anymore. So he leaves. Now that is also a story of everyone's faith. You know, when I got led to Christ, I became a Christian, I was excited, and everyone was gone. I was left alone with a bunch of people telling me how I'm stupid, I'm dumb, oh, this is just one more thing you're into, you were getting moralistic, now you just found another moralistic thing. You know, I'm looking around and go, where were all these guys that were all preaching Jesus to me? Now I'm all alone. So in that picture, we actually see, I think a picture of everyone's faith in one sense. But I think there's a kicker there, which is this man is healed. He wants to go back into the temple. He stands firm, he's given words, he proclaims the gospel, they try to beat him down. He's an apologist right there. And because of that, he's kicked out of the temple that Jesus is about to destroy.
Yeah, and
that's a great story. Wow.
And seeing a lot of this is, I think, one of the most important parts of all this is that too often you're so close into the story that you have to pull out to see that there is a broader context for this. That was
going to be my point. I look at these biblical movies, and the irony is they're so concerned about the details. You can say, you're right, they got the clothing, they've got the set built, but they've missed the story. There really is no story happening. You know, Peter Leithart talks about that if you could create some machine that could record every single event and know every single event that's happening as it's happening all around the world, every second of every moment. He said, so it's omniscient in that sense, right? It's all-knowing. He says, but that all-knowing machine, there's one thing it couldn't do. It could never tell you a story. Because you'd always just be in the detail of every scene. To tell a story, you have to be able to step back and look at it.
Yeah.
I think that's what began me thinking, okay, I want to find these details. I want to find what's going on, the aha moments in the Bible that go, this really is the greatest story ever told, not just the greatest moralistic thing being told.
Well, as we come to the conclusion of this segment, the title of this, we've tentatively titled it what?
The Bible You've Never Read.
Yeah, and I think when hopefully we get all this done and so forth, this will be a way you'll be able to go through the entire Bible, look at it like this, and see it all. This will be great for your children, and they can start stacking on the details in other places and see how all these stories fit together. That gives us what we really have here is the Bible. It is a single book, even though there are multiple stories through it.
For more related to today's show, check out the highly rated title, Thinking Straight in a Crooked World, by best-selling author Gary DeMar, president of American Vision. Gary DeMar shows the power of biblical thinking and the desperate need for it in the church today. Thinking Straight in a Crooked World is designed to identify the bends in the road of ideas and repair them with biblical straight thinking, from worldview to apologetics. You will find it at AmericanVision.com.
Let me just let everybody know what we're doing here so they don't come. I don't hear Ben give one of his theatrics.
Gary, let everyone know I'm in the building.
Darren's in the building.
Right, I think that will really light a fire.